previous years, we had as many as 50 that we would release. I would usually be able to bring in about 25 to 30 of my own release, tag release. Then there was a few here, but I had friends who would come in every year to Monarch Fest and let me release them here. So last year was a real disappointment for me, and I think our visitors. And so I contacted Allie not too long after the fest last year. Said we need to meet in the spring, because I said that your festival is still very interesting to the local population around here. People want to see monarchs. And I think I saw the festival drifting away from monarchs. So I met with Allie, and I met with Charles, and we set this up. So what we'd like to do is focus on raising these through the summer, maybe have some more advertisement, promote the festival, and get back to a focus on monarchs, because there is considerable interest here in Fort Wayne and all over the United States, obviously. So, class, they're insects, obviously, order Lepidoptera, which includes butterflies, moths, and skippers. Are you familiar with skippers?
Yeah.
Little guys? Oh. Yeah, they look like little butterflies. Sorry. But they're called skippers because they bounce around. They usually come in earth tones, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And all of these have various ways within that group: butterflies, moths. And this is something that I basically put this in for the kids, that once you collect, whether it's a frog, a tadpole, any animal that you collect, any living organism that you collect, once you collect it out of nature, it has no way to survive other than you. So you become its parent. You are responsible for the well-being of that. So it's important to take it seriously and take care of these things, either as eggs or as little caterpillars. So what do I use when I'm raising butterflies, moths, and particular monarchs? You'll see these containers on your table here. And this is a little river design. When I got that first chrysalis, it was in one of these 32-ounce containers. So that's not my idea. Whoever came up with that works well. I've raised a lot of monarchs in those containers. I start out in this very smallest size, these little condiment cups. I get these from Gordon's. I don't own stock in Gordon's, but that's where I buy them. And they come with lids. I start them out in this because they're so tiny that if I put them in a 32-ounce container, I'll never find them. I'll lose them almost immediately until they get big enough that I can see them. And that mesh that I put on top, they're small enough that they can crawl through there. So for a good part of the first 4 or 5 days of their life, they can crawl through that. I had one little guy that I think it was in one of the smaller large containers that crawled through there. I didn't know it. I knew he was in there, but I couldn't find him. And so I'm standing there with the lid in one hand and the container looking for him, and realized there he was, like a yo-yo, because they generate a thread that they attach to the inside of the container. Talk about that. When we're transferring these guys back and forth, you have to remember, well, we got a thread on it. I just take a utility knife, cut a square out of the center, and then I go and buy a roll of fiberglass screening. And cut the screening, and I hot glue it to the lids. Any difference or not. And the water, I try to use distilled water or spring water when I dampen the towels. And I only put one per container. Now, a lot of people raise them in aquariums. I don't do that. I raise all of mine individually, because if you have 6 or 8 in an aquarium or more, and one of them gets sick or they get infested, all of them are gone. I usually change I call it changing their diapers every 2 days. All these that I have, you'll see that they're full of frass or poop. So these guys are ready to be changed. If I don't give them away today, then I'll take them home and I'll spend 2 or 3 hours going through and changing everybody's diapers. And these are some of the tools. When I transfer these little guys, the first couple of times I tried to do the clicky little fingers and they weren't working. The survivability of a itty bitty caterpillar in my fingers is not good. And so I use these artist brushes. Walgreens, you get a package of them for $6 or something like that. Okay, so raising butterflies, complete metamorphosis, egg, caterpillar, chrysalis, adult. Of course, the chrysalis of the moth goes to a cocoon. Butterflies, chrysalis. The egg, 3 to 5 days as an egg. As a caterpillar, 10 to 14 days as a caterpillar. 10 to 14 days as a chrysalis. The adult, with the exception of the generation that's going to fly to Mexico, lives 14 to 35 days. Pretty short lifespan, but they've got to get the job done. Again, for them, just like all living organisms, the object is to create another generation. And monarch migration takes up to 6 months. The peak migration for this part of the United States is usually the second week in September. Sometimes Little River has their Monarch Fest, that's peak time. So it's not unusual to come out here during Monarch Fest and see the sky with a lot of monarchs flying, heading south to Mexico. So migration is second week of September. They get down, cross over into Mexico, usually the end of October. Coincides with our All Saints Day, their Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead celebration down there. They celebrate that day and the return of their ancestor spirits through the migration of the monarchs. And so if you see photographs of their celebration, a lot of people are dressed up in these elaborate monarch costumes. I think it's pretty cool. You know, this is one thing that doesn't involve the government. It's done by citizens like us. Canada, United States, and Mexico, all working with the same interest on these monarch butterflies. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool that they associate the monarch return with the spirits of their ancestors, so they have a big part. Pretty cool. So the egg. This is an egg on the bottom of a milkweed leaf. Again, 3 to 5 days. The myth is that female will only lay 1 egg per plant. Not. The majority, that might be true, but if a female is towards the end, especially towards the end of her life, and she's full of eggs, it's called dumping. It's not unusual to see, maybe I've seen as many as 4 eggs laid within a ½ inch. You know that came off of the same female. And she just found a plant that she liked. She could sense it with her feet. And so she laid a bunch of eggs there. They will lay eggs on every part of that plant, not just the bottom of the leaf. I've seen them laid on the stems. At Fox Island, again, we found 8 or 10 eggs laid inside the blossoms. And when they hatch out, the caterpillars will eat the blossoms for a short period of time. Long term, I wouldn't want to leave them on the blossom forever. They will lay them on the blossoms, on the top of the leaf, on the bottom of the leaf. I've seen eggs laid on the stem. So, and they're beautiful when you magnify them. They're football shaped. They are kind of an off-white. This is pretty white just because of the light that I was using. They're serrated on the outside. So, and eggs are easier for me to see than the caterpillars when they first hatch. Caterpillars are kind of translucent. They blend in very well with the leaf, but these eggs, they stand out, and they're about the size of a head of a pin. Or just a little bit larger than the L on the penny. This is more true to color here. They kind of put yellowish caps to them.
Question for you. So they can be yellow and or white as you're looking?
They will generally appear a whitish color, yeah. As they age, they'll get a little bit yellow and black before they hatch. This is something that can confuse you, especially after a rain. If you're out looking for eggs, you can see that the vein on the bottom of this leaf has been nicked just a little bit. Right after a rain, there's a lot of pressure within the inside of that plant, absorbing water, so the sap, there's a lot of pressure in these veins and pushes out the damage on the vein there, and you get just a little bump, and it looks like an egg, but that seed is more of a pure white, and it's rounded. It doesn't look like football shape. A lot of people will call me, "Oh, Jeff, there's an egg." Well, no, it's sap that's come out. So just be aware that that's a possibility. This is an egg. So we talk about instars. There are 5 instars in the life cycle of the caterpillar, and those are the stages between molts. So just like your kids, when they grow up, and as they grow, you have to keep buying them new clothes. That's what happens to a lot of other organisms and caterpillars. As they grow, their skin cannot grow with them, so they shed it. This is the little guy that was in the previous picture. After it hatched out, first meal is egg case. So this guy is eating his egg, and they do that because there are nutrients in that eggshell that they will make them healthy. And so the first thing they do, a lot of times they won't eat the entire case. So sometimes you look in there and you think the egg has not hatched, but if you look at it under a dealer's loupe or magnifying glass, you see that it's half gone. So he's crawled somewhere else after he had his fill of egg case. So this is newly hatched. This is still a first instar. This is still the first stage of this caterpillar. So the first meal is the egg case. Second meal, then he starts to eat the hairs on the back of the leaf. Then after he gets a little bit larger and his jaws get stronger, then he starts to munch on the leaf itself. And that's the stage that this guy is in. So this caterpillar is probably a day, maybe 2 days old. Still really small. This is still a first stage. This is still a first instar, but he's much larger. He's getting close to the point where he needs to molt. And one indication is they're called filaments. They look like an antenna. These 2 little bolts here. Now those will grow. As the caterpillar molts, increases in size, those will grow to the point where they're fairly long in the last stage, just before it forms the chrysalis.
What's their function? Feeling or defense?
They are sensory organs, yeah. Good shot is his feet, his legs will get another picture of his pro legs. He's got another set of legs farther back on his body. When they mold, and this is about a third instar here. When it molds, it just pretty much crawls out of its skin. Then it will rest for 45 minutes or an hour, and then it will turn to a 180 and eat the skin that just crawled out. Again, that skin has nutrients that caterpillar can use, so it won't eat the skin. That's why you rarely will find the skin of a molded caterpillar in a container. This is fourth instar. His filaments on a fourth instar are just now starting to droop. They're long enough where they're just starting to droop. And they're feeding heavily at this point. This is where they start eating a leaf a day. Of course, what goes in has to come out. And that's why every 2 days you need to be changing that out, because that will collect, form mold on the inside, and it just makes a mess. That it helps with that paper towel on the bottom, because a lot of times you can, what I do sometimes, but I'll take, he's on the inside, a lot of times they'll be on the edge. I just put my hand in it and dump it out that way in case he falls off. He falls into my hand, set that up and start all over again. I don't wash them out every time. That's not necessary, but you just need to get rid of that frass. What I often thought I should do is collect that frass and see if it would make good compost in my house plants. It's organic, it's vegetable. I thought, what if that would be? Maybe there's a market out there. Monarch, I don't know. Yeah. This is the fifth instar. That's my pudgy little thumb. And this, you can see where he's been bunching across the top of that leaf. Very long filaments and ready to be a chrysalis in a very short period of time. Okay, good one. This is just before it turns in, within 24 hours of forming a chrysalis, it makes a J. Just before it makes a J, its filaments will deflate and twist. That's how you know that things are moving towards being a chrysalis. So once it forms this J, within 24 hours, it will be a chrysalis. What he's done before this, if you want to be able to see this process, where before they get to a J and hang upside down by their feet, they will lay a webbing mat where they want to put that little fiber button to grasp onto with their feet. And you'll see it moving their head back and forth. They have spinnerets on their head, just like a spider, and they will lay a mat in there, and then they will select one spot to put that little button that they're going to grab onto with their feet and hang upside down as they're becoming a chrysalis. I've got a video, so we'll do this quickly and we'll video. So here he is hanging upside down. At this stage, you'll see that there's a lot of movement. It's contracting. It's pro legs, those legs, those black legs, towards its tail, those are being dissolved. The muscles that would operate those feet are being dissolved to become more of an adult in this process. Then it will split open on the bottom, still hanging by its feet. At this stage, continuing to actually mold. It's going to push that skin to the top as it wiggles around. You can see the the little dots along the side, those are the spiracles that we saw on the caterpillar. So even at this stage, you can see those. Again, pushing that skin up towards the top. The reason it's called a monarch is for this crown. You also see the gold dots. That's not real gold, it's just how the light reflects off of that area. And for the most part, those dots are over the sensory organs on the chrysalis. So, as a chrysalis, you can tell whether it's male or female. Females have a dot, or a line underneath and between those two black dots. There's a series of dots. We can look at it on this chrysalis over here that Bridget gave us. So it's a female. The male has a dimple. Same location, but a dimple. Okay. So this is real time. Sped this up. And that's why it's so difficult to see these. This process only takes 8 to 10 minutes. So if I walked out of the room and I come back and it's a chrysalis. So it took me a while to get these videos. Now, pushing, still attached to the top by its feet. Have any of you been able to see this before?
One time. Yeah, one time out of 3 years of raising it, I've seen it once.
Well, it took me a while.
Yeah, and that was just last year.
It is. Yeah, it did. Now it will wiggle around and twist and squirm for a little bit, and then it will go limp. And then as it dries, it will contract and form the little green jelly bean that we're used to seeing. You can see its spiracles on the side again. Okay? Then as it ages, starting about maybe 5 days before it becomes an adult, it will start to turn very dark. So at this stage, it's very close to becoming an adult. And you can tell, the first indication is it's turned dark, very dark. You're able to see the colors of the wings. You just barely see it on either side. And the top is starting to form ridges in it. That's an indication that it's ready to become an adult. And it splits some more. Now, monarch's an insect. It needs to have 6 legs. This group of butterflies are called 4-footed butterflies. They have 6 legs. The other set of legs are these 2 that project out here. These are its other legs, tucked under its chin. And in the video, hopefully we'll see those, because when it comes out, it's got to test out its body parts, make sure everything works. It will flex those legs. Those are sensory legs. We use those legs to taste. You'll see it flexing its proboscis. When it comes out, the proboscis is all curled up, all coiled, but it's in 2 sections. Those sections need to form tightly so they can use that proboscis as a straw to suck the nectar. So you see it flex and flex and flex. If it doesn't join, that butterfly will start to die because it's got no repeat. And then after, an hour and a half, it will be at least a fully formed adult. This is what break out takes in air. So its abdomen is full of fluid that it will need to expand its wings, and it also has to somehow take in enough air to split open that case so it can start this process. At this point, it's already released from that shell, and it's just working with gravity at this point. So you'll see its abdomen just kind of plop out, and at that point it's hanging for dear life by its toes, by its feet. The top, probably a little bit of moisture in there, acting like a suction holding it in. And again, gravity is in its favor. Now, obviously, that abdomen is full of fluid. So the next thing you'll see around its head, you see that proboscis is in two sections. We'll start to flex that to get those to join back together. You'll see his two legs. What he's holding on to is only by 4 legs, but he's got those other 2 legs up under his chin there. And you'll see him start to flex those a little bit. Working its proboscis, and then you'll see its abdomen start to contract and release. Watermelon, they love watermelon, so I go to the store and buy just a regular watermelon and put it in some kind of container so they can come down and feed on watermelon. They love watermelon. They prefer that over the Gatorade. But I think the best solution is to put some kind of natural flower in here. Usually, goldenrod is plentiful when I'm trying to save these guys for extended time. So I bought cut goldenrod and put them in a small container of some kind. I can put it in a quart jar, but I'd have to put some kind of material around the top so it wouldn't fall down in the water. Males and females. Of course, the males have the 2 black dots on the vein of their hind wing. That is a little sac that emits pheromones, the chemicals that attracts the females. Female on the bottom there, you can tell females because their veins are whiter than the males. You see the veins in his wings are pretty distinct, pretty sharp. Her veins are whiter and makes her appear just a little darker. I've seen big females, small females, size, they can be an infinite variety of sizes. Monarchs and viceroys, what I find now interesting is I always thought that the viceroy benefited by looking like a monarch. They now see, and there's a name for it, the name is this is a symbiotic relationship between the 2 because each of those butterflies are toxic. Monarch by eating milkweed. I think the viceroy feeds on willow, I believe. But both of them are toxic. So the monarch benefits by looking like the viceroy benefits by looking like the monarch. So this is the tag that we use when we're tagging. They've changed it a little bit. They've taken off the telephone number. So these are, I think it's probably Mylar, Dave, I don't know if you know, but it's a very tough plastic. That's what the tag looks like. That tag is placed on one location on the underside of the hind wing. There's a loop to place that on. It's called the discal